I was born ready.
I was born ready, Stu.
Oh, well,
Dumb question.
we're already
Dumb
recording,
question.
so we better all
Bam.
be ready.
That's how
I'm
that's
at
how ready we
70.
are.
So I had a goal this year to do 25,000 push-ups. So for military guys, it's probably no big deal. But for somebody who hasn't worked out for like at least 10 years, that was a big deal to get started. And I'm at 7,200 so far year to date. So
how many is
awesome.
that? How many is that a day? Are you doing on a daily basis?
about 100. Like it started out slow because it's like when you haven't done them, you're like, holy crap, this sucks. And then you start seeing results right away. And then it gets to the hard part where you're like, oh, this sucks again, really bad. And then I'm kind of past that now. So now it's just kind of getting much easier.
Yeah. David and I signed up to give money to this charity cause, and in addition to that, you were supposed to do like 100 burpees a day for like 30 days straight. And we both, like, of course, like a competition starts with, everyone, like these guys and all like alpha males in the military, you're seeing everybody's numbers, and one day you're 100, and then it's like 104, then it's like 107, then it's like 300. And so like both my shoulders were like done, and I have like a torn shoulder, and like I was spent. And he like, didn't you like hurt your knee or your hip or something?
Oh man, my shoulders. It was weird. I've been doing, push-ups is like a staple for what we do in life.
Exactly.
And and I don't know what I did, but I had a little side bet going with one of our awesome shipmates and listeners and entrepreneur, Marcus Long. And man, I woke up after the competition and I've had 2 shoulder MRIs now. I don't know what I did. It's crazy.
Yeah. So like I started this little accountability Facebook messaging thing with just one guy, like, and then now that's grown to like 5 people. And then that guy, Nick, who's a real estate investor from like out East, he's like, I met this guy today and he was a Navy SEAL and he's been doing 500 push-ups every day since 2007. And he's like, so I'm going to start doing, I'm like, forget it, dude. I'm not doing the 500 push-ups a day. It's not happening, dude.
Nice. Well,
that's awesome. That's a lot.
This was a fun start. I mean, so this is Filling the Storehouse podcast, and we have Tom Olson on today. And so didn't think it was going to go there to begin with, but who knows where it's going to go from now on. But Tom, thanks for having us. Thanks for being on our show.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for hosting our show for us. It's really nice of you to take that on. And
none
of this will be edited, so this is all.
Well, that's totally fine. I didn't realize you guys were going to make that part of the podcast. And we weren't going to edit that out, but that's okay. I'm totally fine with that. I do host 2 podcasts myself: the Good Success podcast and the Active Turnkey podcast. And we have these like introductions that we kind of do at the beginning of every podcast. But hey, let's just make it real and
that's what we do.
Flow with it, man.
Yeah, that's what we do. Well, Tom, you actually, and I know that it's all confusing, but you came and talked to the War Room Mastermind group a couple months ago about, one of your many businesses. You're kind of talking about, dealing with contractors, and I know you have a contracting company, but I know there's a lot more there. So if you could just, for our audience who may have not heard of you, like kind of give us a little bit of background about who you are and kind of the number of businesses that you're involved with.
Sure, absolutely. So yes, I do have a construction management company called Olson Construction Management Services. It's where I got my start from. It is where I've been doing since I was 12 years old. I kind of feel like everything in my life has led up to something else, which I think the only way you can really think that way is by believing in God and understanding that He is the one that, God says that He knows what steps you're going to take, and he puts you through all the different things. And sometimes it's ups, which honestly right now for me is I'm probably on a high right now with most of my things. They're going really well. And sometimes it's down. Sometimes, there are those low points in your life, but you need all those in order to be able to help the people that God created you to be able to help. So construction, where I started from, and I won't really get into my story because we probably don't have time. And it's interesting that I have the background of Olson Group here because this is a company that builds rental portfolios for investors. And I guess if I would have understood who the avatar was, I probably would have flipped around in the studio. And I'm in the show for the people that are watching. Like I normally would be with this,
Nice.
the other side. But that's okay. We're just going to wing it, and we're going to keep stay here with the Olson Group logos in the back. But Olson Group does build rental portfolios for people right here in Gary, Indiana. I do have a heart for the city of Gary. That kind of all came out in my story as well. And if you guys ever hear my story about me moving to Gary and really trying to help the city of Gary, Indiana, and we're doing that. Right now, we manage 350 properties for real estate investors here in Northwest Indiana. And we have sold, I have bought and sold probably about 2,000 homes now in our career. Not all to investors, some fix and flip, some, different ways. We do have a small rental portfolio as well, me and my wife. And those are in the Sarah Joe company that I own. And that company also has corporate rentals and vacation rentals. So we have 15 of those that my wife manages in that company as well. So I've got the construction company talked about, the property management company, OPS, and then Olson Group, which is a company that builds rental portfolios for investors. We also do some fix and flips now. And this year has kind of been interesting because when you're doing turnkey rentals, especially the way we do them. So we do them to a very high standard. We put granite, quartz countertops in, luxury vinyl planks in. Like to me, like I don't want to have maintenance down the road. And I want to also lift the values of the property themselves. So, by doing that, like you're getting the house to almost the same level as a fix and flip person really would. And so it's interesting. This year has been, the inventory in Indiana is over 50% less than it was a year ago. Right now, we're one of the top states in the country that actually has less inventory than they did a year ago. Probably, I think in the top 5, top 6 in the country. But so the same houses that we were selling for 120 to investors are now worth 150, 160 just overnight almost, really. So this year we're probably fix and flip about half and turnkey about half, only really because that's what the market's telling us to do right now. I also own a company called Good Success, which for 3 years, is that me beeping? I'm sorry, I apologize. For the last 3 years, that's been a mastermind. And we just decided to shut down that mastermind just because I kind of felt like God kept pushing me to go and start a lending company. And then also, it was just so wide open. It was just so easy for us with everything else we have going on. And, over the years, I've borrowed almost $20 million worth of people and paid it back to people. So I have a lot of people who want to give me money. And it really kind of just fit with what we're doing. And I looked at a P&L from just January. For just 1 month, we made more money in the lending company than we had made in the Good Success company for the last 3 years combined. And it was like, okay, I need to put more focus on this. And God just, need to slap me upside the head and just show me that this is what I have for you right now, not necessarily this. So it's interesting because through the last 3 years, we always did surveys for our mastermind, and I consistently got the same answer when we were asking, what can we do more for you? What do you want more of? And they kept saying, we want more of you, Tom. We want you more one-on-one somehow. How do we get more of you? And I'm one of these guys that it's hard for me to accept that. It's hard for me to think that I'm all that, because I don't think I am. I just know that I've worked hard, and I know that I try to do the right thing. And I know that, I beg God for blessing and for him to keep me from evil and for him to, direct my paths. And so with all that being said, I kind of changed what we were doing and said, you know what, let's forget the mastermind. I'm spending 60% of my own personal time in that. It's reaping benefits because I know I'm helping people, but it's not really reaping benefits that I feel like God placed me on this earth to do, which is to promote his kingdom. And that's who the whole mastermind was for. It was for Christian entrepreneurs so they could have more, so they could give more. But I kind of feel like doing the business consulting with one-on-one implementing business operating systems into people's businesses. I think I can make a better impact and a deeper impact with one person at a time rather than that group kind of concept. So that's really what I'm working on when it comes to that particular business. And honestly, I'm kind of enjoying my free time right now. I mean, I was
Yeah.
spending 30 hours a week probably working on marketing and business planning and sales calls, and the mastermind itself is just a lot of work. And so at the end of the day, I just, said, I kind of almost, I feel like I have my time back now, which is probably not a good thing for me, because I'm one of those type of people that can't really stay, can't sit still. But I think it's opened my eyes up to other things that we have going on. My daughters toured the College of Pensacola Christian University this last summer, and they really like that college, so they're probably going to go there. And at the same time, like, me and my wife are going to be selling one of our properties we've owned for, I don't know, 15 years, where we have a ton of equity in it, and we're like, what are we going to do with this? It was an Airbnb for us. And so my goal this year is to actually buy a property down there for us to be able to have a second home, and for when the kids are there for college, for us to go and maybe live 3 months out of the year, and then also start a second market. Like, I really like that market in Pensacola. It's got a lot of military, a lot of transient in and out. I think it compares very well to what I'm used to here in Northwest Indiana. And I don't think I would have been able to do all that if I would have held on to this mastermind. And so anyway, so that's what we've got going on. My wife's also a broker. Like I said, we just started this lending company called Conduit Capital. And one of my favorite statements is, be a conduit, not a bucket. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm just connecting borrowers to lenders. And that's kind of a lot about what I do and who I am. And I'm also a Christian, number one, a father, number two, not a father, I mean, a husband, number two, a father, number three, and then a businessman. So with the business consulting program, like, I feel like all of my businesses right now, other than the business consulting, really run themselves. Like, there's somebody in place that runs that business. And what I found out is especially in real estate's one of these really weird businesses. You would not be able to go to any other business. You wouldn't be able to open up, a restaurant. You wouldn't be able to open up, a little small shop. You wouldn't be able to have a manufacturing plant and just think that you can do one deal and you could make 20 grand, and then you could almost part-time it. Right. I mean, that's right. That's kind of it's kind of like the pro and the con when it comes to real estate, is that you could make a lot of money with one deal. So it makes us feel like we can just treat it like a hobby, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a business. And, when I get into the 7 levels of business, that first level is idea. And I kind of like even bring this back to God, when his plan for creating the earth, day number 1, it says God created the heaven and the earth. Well, what did he create? Did he really create people and processes and things? No, he didn't create any of that. And that's what we have in our business. We have an idea, right? We have this, like, we create it in our head, so to speak. Step number 2, for him was what? Like, he decided to actually start putting things in this earth and try to, tinker with it. And that's what I kind of feel like we are in the hobby phase. When we start tinkering, we decide we're going to go try something, which is kind of where I'm at now with this second market, in Pensacola. I have this idea, and right now I'm in this phase of starting to get in that hobby phase where I decide, am I really going to go all in? Am I going to make this a business? Am I going to make a second market, or am I just going to kind of tinker with this? So that hobby phase, number 2, number 3 is the startup phase. And if you study Harvard business or anything like that, they kind of say that's the first level of business. And I wouldn't disagree with them, because it really is the first level of real business. But I've had so many entrepreneurs, and especially in real estate, never really get out of hobby and never really say, hey, I'm going to, this is for real now. This is not just a part-time side gig. It's time for me to put my eggs, where I say they are, put my money where my mouth is. And, in that startup phase, you have a predetermined amount of money and a predetermined amount of time where you're going to hit certain goals. And if you don't hit those goals, then you got to reevaluate. Do I need to shut this business down? Is this not going to work? Or what tweaks do I need to make? Or what people do I need to bring on? What processes do I need to implement in order to be able to get to that next level? And that next level, like, people think is you go from startup and all of a sudden you're profitable, right? And it's just not that's just not the case.
Not
It's
so
not
much.
reality.
I wish.
You know, that it's either that or people like start up and they want to go to scale. And I'm like, no, like you haven't even figured out how to be profitable yet. Like, so that third phase of startup, you have those predetermined goals. You give a certain amount of money, to the business. You say like by a certain amount of time, we're going to have. And for me, most of the time, that certain amount of time means like as a business owner, the business is at least going to take care of itself. The business is going to at least bring in enough money to cover overhead, to cover expenses, to cover whatever. And then by a certain date, in the future, we're going to actually be profitable. That phase that people get stuck in between there is, what most people would call that perseverance stage. It's like, I just got to suck it up, buttercup. I got to like make it happen. And, a lot of times you as the owner, you're still in the business. You're still like sucked into the business.
Yeah.
You're still like have lots of jobs in the business,
Multiple
maybe.
roles.
And really where most businesses fail is in the startup phase or in this perseverance phase, because why would a business fail once it's profitable? You know what I mean? Like 50% of businesses fail in that startup phase, and then another whole 50% of the 50%, which means 25% of businesses typically, 75% of businesses typically fail in those first two, or in those first two phases of real business.
Yeah.
And so then you get to profit, and I think profit has to have a definition. And the definition of profit, I look at it as three different ways. So profitable business means, number one, the owner or the investors have been paid back what they've put in the business. So whether that's time, whether that's money, a lot of times it's money, but they've been paid back what they have put in. Because even though the company might be profitable, if you haven't paid back that initial investment, like you really haven't gotten back to zero.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the first thing, is making sure that the investors that invested up front or the owner has been paid back for their time and their money that they've invested into the business. Number two, the owner is being paid what they're worth to that company. So if you had to replace the owner in that business, how much of a salary would you have to pay somebody else to be able to replace that person? And then number three, when it comes to being profitable, is yes, are you profitable quarter over quarter? It's not just like, and maybe you might have a slip up here and there, or maybe you have a bad quarter, and that's normal in business. We have to know that as business owners, that it is absolutely normal to kind of have those little slip ups. And maybe COVID, it was a great example. You might be profitable, and all of a sudden COVID hit you a bad quarter, and then you kind of go back up. And what's interesting is sometimes like we go back. Sometimes we're profitable, and then we slip back into those, other stages. Hopefully you're not slipping back into the startup phase, but you kind of go back into that perseverance stage. Now, once you're profitable, you kind of have a choice. And I think the choice has a lot to do with that owner or that visionary, or that top person in that business, and of what they can handle. And that decision at that point is, do I want to scale? Or do I just want to suck every efficiency out of this business that I possibly can, make it more efficient, make it more profitable, and just stay small? It's kind of like you have to make that decision: stay small and keep it all, or go big or go home. That's really that's where it's at that point. And I think a lot of people get sucked into trying to scale. That they go to these conferences, they go to scaling up 10x, like everybody thinks it's so awesome. But at the end of the day, like you get sucked into scaling way at the very beginning of your business. And honestly, I've seen people just kill themselves, go bankrupt, literally go bankrupt, buy way too many houses, do way too much. And they go from like these levels of in their real estate business, from like doing no deals to like doing 200 deals. And if you're doing that within like a year or two from the time you started up, I'm just going to tell you, most people are going to fail. Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. And I think through that, I've also kind of looked at real estate from the little guy's perspective, not from like the hedge fund, not from that perspective, but from the little guy's perspective. I've seen that there's kind of these stages in the number of deals you can do. So for instance, if you're going to be in the hobby phase and you're going to think, okay, I'm going to keep my full-time job and I'm going to do deals on the side. For instance, like you say, you're going to do some fix and flips. I think you can actually do on the side 4 deals a year and not really, and really do it on the side. Now, as soon as it's time to go full time and go all in, I think that you by yourself can do about 12, 10 to 12 deals. And you can really, honestly, most people could make a living off of 10 to 12 deals a year. 100%, absolutely. You'll make decent money. You're never going to be like, you honestly, if you did that over and over and over again, you'd probably become a millionaire and you'd be fine. Like you'd be totally fine. The next level in which you start creating this small little team of say 3 to 5 people, I think it's around that 40 mark. And I think this is where you have to be careful. You start doing 40 deals and you can get it done with 3 to 5 people on your team. And but a lot of times people think, oh, I need to do 100, and they're really only capable of doing 40. And then they have this team, this massive team built to do 100 deals, and then they wonder why they're not making any money, because like they have all this extreme overhead, and they don't really realize that they should have just stayed small, got really good at doing 40, and then built that next step to go to 100. And then I think 100 is kind of like that next level where there's enough money for the owner to step away, to completely step away and be like, you know what? I don't need to be in the business. I have an asset leader who's running this business. They have their own finance people. They have their own processes. They have their own people. They have everything involved. But for me, that's not even scale. Scale is like that next level. And what I have found is that you will make the same amount of money if you do 100 deals as if you do 200 deals. And I promise you, like I've seen it. I've seen their P&Ls, all those people at the big masterminds that are pumping their chests and they're doing 250 deals. I'll take the guy doing 100 deals over the guy doing 250 deals 100 times out of 100, because I bet he has less stress. He has a smaller team. He has an easier way to manage his systems, and he's making just the same amount of money as the guy doing 250 deals. If you want to scale past 100, you better go big or go home, and you better be doing 400 deals. And I've seen this. Like I've looked at the numbers. I've looked at a company called Memphis Invest, and they're doing about 1,600 deals, I think, right now a year. Massive company. I went to their business and toured their facility when they were doing 400 deals in just Memphis. Now they're in several different markets across the country. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, wow, like this is what it looks like. This is what that next step looks like. So that's part of why we let people come to our office and just kind of like look at, what do we have going on? How do we invoke culture into our business? How do we make that all happen? But back to the 7 levels of business, I was trying to use that in real estate and kind of understand what those steps look like. And I think number of deals is probably the easiest way for me to explain that. But that next level, you have to make that determination. Is it stay small and keep it all, or is it scale, go big or go home? And that's that scaling phase of business. And then the last step, which you don't ever have to go to scale to hit this last step. And everybody should be thinking about the last step, I think, when you start the business, really. Simon Sinek says, start with the end in mind, start with why, all those things. And part of that, I think, should be, what are you doing? Who's your customer? But the other part of how you're going to sell the business, and how are you going to let go of the business? And it's that legacy stage of business where some people never get to, really, and that's totally fine. But I think we should all be building our business to sell. And there's many things in a business that other business buyers look at. Right? So like if I'm buying a business and I'm going to come look at your business, there's probably 5 to 7 things that most people look at. And I'm going to tell you, like, I think their financial makeup, which is kind of their cash flow, their profit and loss, their future growth perspective, all those things are part of, the financial thing. Obviously they look at the assets, they look at hard assets. They look at soft assets. They even look at digital assets, your brand and all that you have. Like all those are kind of assets that you own. Our construction company actually has an app that we've probably, put $50,000 into called Scoper. And, so that's a digital asset. And it's actually kind of even a physical asset, because we can show people this is a process that we've been using to do our scopes for the last, 8 years. Also, your processes. Do you have written processes? Can people be trained easily to be able to do this when other people are hired on? So all those things are super important. Also, they're going to look at your balance sheet as well when it comes to assets, and what do you actually owe versus what are things worth. In real estate, that kind of gets a little complicated, for selling a business, but like you understand what that means. And when you have a house that's worth maybe $200,000 and you only owe $100,000 on it, well, your balance sheet will show that you have an extra $100,000 in equity there. So you're looking at those things. And there's several other things as well. I think when it comes to, selling a business, you want to know what your list looks like. You want to know if there's reoccurring revenue, but every single person that's buying businesses wants to know, what is your business operating system? How are you running it? How is the day-to-day going to happen? How does this momentum just keep going on without you? Because eventually, if you're selling the business, you want to walk out. And if a business is just built on you, like, you don't really have a business at all. All you have is a job. So at the end of the day, that's why I really believe that this business consulting and this business operating system implementing in people's businesses is so valuable, because not only will you have a business operating system in your business, but then if you want to go start another business, you'll have the education and the wherewithal and really the knowledge and even like the system that I have implemented in your business to be able to go and implement a new business. So it's not only just the fact that your particular business now will have a business operating system in it. You'll know how to create your yearly plans every year, and you'll have your 13-week plans, and you'll know how to create a scorecard. You'll have an accountability chart for your business. You'll have, we also do a really great exercise in that, called the core value exercise, and implementing those core values into your business and how you really going to set up your non-negotiables to say, hey, we ain't putting up with this. These are the type of people I like. These are the type of people I don't want to work with. And just because I don't want to work with you doesn't mean you're a bad person. You might be great, but you don't fit in here. So those things are it's those preliminary things that people don't really think about until they're really getting ready to sell. But you should have been starting this, way back in hobby startup phase. You should have been doing these things way back at the beginning. So that's really what I'm doing for people right now. I don't know anybody that is doing these for less than $15,000 to $30,000 really. And I'm only charging $6,000 for the 2-day business implementation. So that's kind of what I've been doing right now. You guys could kind of heard the whole gamut of everything that's kind of going on in my life. I know when it comes to, faith, I have two massive goals in my life. One is to flip the city of Gary, Indiana, which we're really working hard on. And the other is to give away $1 billion. And I believe that giving away the money piece for me is 100% spiritual. And I've actually started to write a book for children. I've been asked by our youth pastor at our church to start helping with the youth. And for those people that want to go in business, what should their attitude be? And at the end of the day, the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. And, which is so opposite to what the world says. What the world says, pay yourself first.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then what does he say? And then all of these things shall be added unto you. So it's almost like the whole world's concept of pay yourself first is the exact opposite of what God says. God says, pay me first in your tithe and offerings, and pay me first with your focus, and build the kingdom here on earth. And that, people ask me all the time, well, what does that mean? How do you build the kingdom? Well, part of that's giving, but I think charity is so much more than giving. It's the way we live our life. It's the way of living. And it is be ye kind one to another. And how do we be ye kind one to another? It's tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake has forgiving us. That's really what building the kingdom is. And it's you can either live for yourself, which is the devil working for you, or you can live for others, which is be a conduit, not a bucket. It's letting God work through you, letting his grace, letting his mercy, letting his love, his money that he's given you, because all of it's his anyways. We ain't taking it with us. And it doesn't really matter what we have at the end of our life. Yes, you want to be able to pass on money to your children's children, like they talk about with Abraham. And those things I think are important. Don't get me wrong, but they shouldn't come first. I think God should come first, and his focus should come first, and us building the kingdom should come first. And then the second 10%, the second part should be focused on building our financial freedom And then we need to learn to live on that extra 80%. Like when we're young, this is what 19-year-olds should learn. 19-year-olds should learn, how do I give first? How do I then save second? And then how do I figure out how to invest, and how do I build my own financial freedom plan down the road? And I know I said a mouthful there, and most of the podcasts I'm on, people want to talk and interject, but you guys have kind of just given me the floor here. So I took it in my head.
I'm taking notes. That's what I'm doing.
No, I'll tell you what, that, there's so much there. And actually we prefer that that most of the stuff comes out of our mouth is pretty dumb. So, we look brilliant. The more you talk, the better we look anyways. But,
oh my goodness, you guys are horrible.
But I think there's, it is, there's so much there. And I'll tell you, I personally am going to go back and listen to this over and over, because I think there's what was really interesting to me and stuck out to me is, one, you kind of hit it starting at the end and going back, but that having that why and that purpose. And I mean, $1 billion, like that's, it's funny because in this culture and today, people want to be billionaires, and you want to be a billionaire giver. And I think that sets the foundation for everything else, and how the opportunity really, when I think about you, I think opportunity begets opportunity. And you had this business, you started this business, you had this focus, these core values, and then that turned into another business and turned into another business. And I think what you're doing now is not the culmination, but it is a culmination of all these experiences that you've had, plus the foundation of God. And you really hit it well. It goes beyond the money, right? It goes to what you're now pouring into other people. And the opportunity you're teaching them, like I'm looking forward to taking your coaching to really understand how to maximize their opportunity in their business. And I think that investment, that reallocation of your time to investing in people to do that, that's kingdom building, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if they're like-minded individuals, especially if they want to give and you challenge them to be more like you. Man, there's so much there. It was awesome. Like, I'm like fired up. I got goosebumps just from you should keep talking. Well,
it's interesting you say that, because like that is one of my criteria. Like, I do not want to work with somebody who just wants another car and just wants another boat and just wants to go on another cruise. Like, I'm all for that. Don't get me wrong. I think one of the best investments you'll ever do with your family is to take family vacations. We do several every year. So don't get me wrong. I'm not against those things at all. But I do think that shouldn't be our focus. Our focus should not be on pleasure. And I think there's so many times, like, we let pleasure be our rule, be our God at the end of the day. And, it's interesting. I went to Israel 2 years ago, and I guess this is another opportunity for me to plug our Israel trip. So we are going to Israel. If anybody wants to go with the Good Success, we're actually going in November of 2022. So if anybody's interested in that, they can go to the website, goodsuccess.com, and find out more about that. But when I was there, it's interesting because back, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, people spent their money on creating these temples. When we think about a temple, we think about a church, we think about this big, massive building, or we think about something that's just, it was like almost like a 10 by 10 building. And then and then inside was all these idols. And they would just continually pour money into there, and then they would go and worship those things. And I think in today, we don't really have those things. So we don't have those physical temples, right? But what do we have today? Really, like, we worship ourselves. We worship our bodies. We worship our pleasure. We worship social our media. Vacations. We worship our houses. We worship our, we spend so much time watching TV. It's just, amazing to me how much time we probably blow on TV. We spend time on watching football. All those things are our gods. All those things are our idols that we're investing our time and our money and our treasure in. And the Bible says very clearly, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So, I mean, to me, like, if your first few fruits aren't going to help God and to help Him, spread the gospel, or to help another person, help a person in an orphanage, or help the needy, or help the sick, I can tell you where your priorities are by two things: where your checkbook is. If you show me your checkbook and you show me your schedule, I will tell you where your priorities, where we spend our time.
That's one of our favorite lines. That's one of our favorite lines. We highlight that one often. We love that.
I mean, and it's absolutely true. And God says it, God says, if you spend time with me, I'll know that I'm a priority. God says, if you spend your money on me, I know that I'm one of your priorities. So, I mean, I think it's something that we even need to teach our kids better. We need to do a better job even teaching our teenagers, hey, like, get in the habit now. Get in this habit of first. Don't worry about saving. Worry about giving first. Get in that rhythm of giving, and then get in the habit of saving, living on less, than you make. And it's always the disciplines in life. It's always the hard things that really create the result. I mean, you guys know this. I mean, I really love talking to military people because like they get it. They understand what real life is, and that, all this crap that you hear on the media now is just like absolute bizarreness. But like, that there's a reason why they made you start at the bottom when you start in military. You don't start as a general.
Right.
Oh, you start at the very bottom of the very bottom, below the bottom, right? Like you start below the bottom in the mud, doing push-ups in the mud, or doing that. Like that's where you start, and you submit yourself to that. And by submitting yourself and by being humble, that's when you get exalted. You don't get exalted by being the freshman, the first day guy that mouths back. Like, no, that guy's not getting exalted, is he? No. It's the guy that worked his ass off, that beat everybody else. He killed everybody because he worked his butt off, and he didn't and he was humble about it. And he was like, yes, sir. And like, he made it happen. And that's how we really need to be, like, and that's how we need to be with God. That's how we need to be in business, even as leaders. There's a whole, I can go forever on leadership in business, but that's even how we should be, as leaders. When Jesus came, what did he do with his 12 disciples before he's like the night before he's going to be crucified? He's washing his disciples,
washing their feet.
Like, he is the servant. He is the person that's trying to figure out what he can do to help everybody else. We have this completely upside down vision of leadership, where like the leader's on the top. Well, that's not the case. Like the leader's on the bottom holding everybody up. It's like an upside down triangle. So, and the more of a leader you're going to be in your business, the more you're going to have to take on those. You're going to have to create bigger shoulders. You need those push-ups, that we talked about at the very beginning in the military, to be able to carry the back, right? You're going to have your 80-pound, backpack on the back. You're going to have to be able to go take those long, and if your shoulders aren't big enough, like you ain't going to be able to make those things happen. So, and that's the same way it is in business. I mean, business, it's all about the daily disciplines. It's all about putting those processes in place and then adding to those things down the road. But you have to have that foundation first. The foundation for us in our faith is God. It's his word. Foundation for our business needs to be our own word. And that's really what we're creating when we're creating business and operating systems for people. It's like, what is our word? What does our business say? Even our processes, we're written processes. Our business says, this is how we do it. And I think it's one of the best things God ever did for us was give us his word and put it on paper and say, you know what? I can never lie to you, because you can always come back to my word, and you can always say, look, it's here. Even in Jesus's ministry, I love studying Jesus. Everybody's like, what's your favorite character? And I hear all it. I'm like, and I feel like I'm not trying to one up people, but my favorite character really literally is Jesus. I'm like,
mic drop.
How can you get better than Jesus? Like he's the only one who lived a perfect life, and just the promises. I'm actually reading a book right now. I wish I had it with me now, but it's by Scott, who also wrote The Richest Man That Ever Lived, which is basically on David and the Song of Solomon and all of that. On Solomon, sorry, not David. But he also wrote a book that's basically like a daily devotional, and a lot of it is all about talking about what Jesus said on earth and all the promises that he gave us. And it's just so true. Like Jesus's words, whatever he thought about something is something that I think, you could read the whole Bible. I'm not saying you should take it with a grain of salt, because like even Jesus decided that, hey, I'm going to fulfill the prophecy in Isaiah. I'm going to like go back and I'm going to make sure that all these words that we said were going to happen are going to happen. To me, like, it's just, to me, I come alive when I really understand that, I am a wicked sinner and I deserve nothing. I deserve nothing but hell. And the fact that God decided he's going to have mercy on me and not let me go there. And then not only that, but he's going to give me a home in heaven, and he's going to let me, sit right there with him and worship him forever. Like, and have that grace. Like, that's what helps me understand, like, this is how I need to be with everybody else. I need to.
He's probably going to have you building some of the houses for us, man. Like,
what's that?
I said he's going to have you building some of the houses for us.
I don't know. Maybe that'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, if you think about it, like, I think so many times in Christian business, we think, the question gets asked over and over, how do you use your business? I'm like, well, like, it's really in the everyday. It's in the journey. It's in how you treat your neighbor. It's in how you solve problems. It's in, the face-to-face, the forgiveness. Like, to me, like, that's like, it's a hard thing to do, but in business is one of those things that we have to do almost every day.
Yeah.
Especially when you have tenants. Like, you can't, really seriously think about it. Like, we have a property management company with about 350 doors that we manage. And honestly, 90% of them are probably okay, good, decent. You have that 10% that are just like, and if you don't forgive them and you don't forget about it and like think about what they're going through. And honestly, like, we even pray for them. We have a Monday morning prayer meeting with our businesses. I don't force everybody to come, but I have probably 8 to 12 people that come every single week out of 28 employees. And, it's one of those things that we pray for often. We pray for our investors, that their investors will be profitable. We pray for our tenants, that they'll have jobs and that they'll be able to pay their rent and they'll make good decisions. And, they maybe eventually they'll own a house. At the end of the day, everybody's going through something. And that is the love. Like, above all, have charity. The 2 rules that God said, like, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. And the second is like unto the first, love thy neighbor as thyself. Like, at the end of the day, that's how you are building the kingdom. It's not about necessarily having more money and even giving more money to a certain degree. I think giving money is a part of that's why I feel like why God made me. But, why God made you might be, to help your own son or daughter who might be, might have disabilities, or, like, everybody has a different mission, and it's not my will. It's not really what I always want. And this is why, like, even now, I've been saying these 2 big goals, for like the last 10 years of my life, flipping Gary and giving away $1 billion. But I've had to come to the realization, what if I can't do those things? Like, it's not my will, it's really God's. I need to work like it all depends on me, pray like it all depends on God. And, at the end of the day, just trust him that, he's directing my path.
Man, it's so good. Now, I'm just curious, like, we've talked a few times now, and I've heard you say that you want to give $1 billion away. Like, what are you passionate about? What are you wanting to give money to? Are there certain charities, certain organizations
Absolutely.
that you're passionate about?
I would say there's 2 right now that I would say for me, I'm probably the most passionate about. I think number 1 is missions. I actually have employees that used to work for me that are on the mission field. So some of them are like very specific. So missions is definitely one of those things where I really do believe that, go into all the world and preach the gospel, and like the go is not for everybody, but everybody has a part in that Great Commission. Everybody does.
Yep.
And so to me, I feel like that's my part. I think number 2, I think for me right now is our own church and our own individual thing. We actually had a building program. We built this massive auditorium, 7,500 seat auditorium about 10 years ago. And I think it cost us $30 million to build it. It's about a $50 million building. So we really did really well on it. It's about 180,000 square foot facility. And we still owe about $9.5–10 million on it. It's one of those prayers I pray every single day, because I know that what our church, and even though our church is a mega church, it is not one of those churches that has like all the money in the world. It's not one of those churches that, like, we're probably one of the, and it's funny, even our bank has told us that you bring in the least amount of money of any mega church we've ever met, but you like spend it better than anybody else, and your books better than anybody else. So like that's
awesome.
It's really good to, to have that. But I just know we have a payment right now of $68,000 a month that I know that money could be better spent to get the gospel around the world, to have more programs for the church, to be able to, so I really am passionate about the church and about what God's passionate about. And that's what I try to be, but I also always want to be open. I always want to be open and looking. If you don't look, what you focus on expands. And we say this in business all the time, right? Whatever you focus on, you're going to make it better. But, I think sometimes we have to focus on what can we give, who needs my help? If you never actually look around you, and really like ask God, hey, is this something that you want me to give? I mean, I have opportunities all the time to be able to give. And there's sometimes I don't give anything to it because I don't feel like that's why I'm here on this earth. And I kind of, I'll pray and I'll ask God, hey, is this something I should give to? And sometimes you'd be like, yeah, you need to. And then sometimes he's like, nope, you need to give more than that. Nope, you need to give more than that. And, I feel like if God can trust me with a penny, he can trust me with a nickel. If he can trust me with a nickel, he can trust me with $1,000. If he can trust me with $1,000, he can trust me. He doesn't, I love the story when it comes to like business and it comes to, even money. I love Jesus. Let's go back to Jesus's words, right? When he talks about the man with the talents,
yep.
God, there's a reason why the master only gave the one guy one talent. And we found out later why, right? There's a reason why he gave the guy with two talents. And there's a reason why he gave the guy with five talents. I often wonder to myself, I wonder if the 5 talent guy at one time was a 1 talent guy. And then he was a 2 talent guy. And then he became a 5 talent guy. There's a reason why that master gave those. It doesn't disclose that in the story, but there's a reason why he gave those 3 different amounts. And then there's a reason why he gave the 10 talent guy now who's got 10, who was so willing to give it back to the master. He's like, you know what? I've made these 5 into 10 talents. And then he said, you know what? The guy who had everything I gave him, the guy didn't waste it. Like, that's what's really interesting about that story is the guy with 1 talent, he had the 1 talent left. So if God's given me $1 million and I have that $1 million, and I come back to the master and say, okay, here's the $1 million you gave me. What is God going to say? Like, he's going to say, you slothful, lazy servant, I'm going to take away that and I'm, from you, and I'm going to give it to this other guy who actually did something with it. Why didn't you at least get interest? Why didn't you at least, put this in the bank and get some interest and try to, figure out how to do something with it? And I that's what I think, God's called all of us. Whether it's everybody has time, talent, or treasure, or network. I think there's those 4 things that we all have. We have something that we can give. We can either give time, we can give, talents or skills, or we can give money, or we have network. We have people we know that other people we can be a conduit with. And it doesn't really matter. And every one of those things in business is valuable. Yeah. Like, think about it. Like, a crippled can make money. Seriously, like, you could make money as a cripple now with technology if you're willing to give some focus and some time and make something happen. And what keeps us, I think there's 3 things that keep most people from success. Number 1 is fear. Like, if you think about it, like, I'm afraid and that's probably me. Like, if there's one thing that keeps me from doing something else, it's that fear of failure, fear of like hurting somebody else, fear of whatever. Fear is, I think, one of the number 1 things that keeps us from our success and keeps us from being that conduit or being that, that good steward of what God's given us is fear. If you think about it, that those stewards that got the talents could have said, I'm afraid. And actually that last one did. He said, I was afraid. I knew that you were a mean, master. And if I squandered this, you would, hurt me or whatever. I don't know. But I don't know what he was thinking, but out of fear, he buried his talent. He didn't do anything with it. I think number 2 is pride. Pride of life, fear, and lust of the eyes is 2 things that like get all of us. So pride, keeps us, we think we're too good. If that 1 talent guy maybe he thought he was too good to actually go out and work. And he was, or he was too prideful to even accept it. If any one of those person that was given the talents would have said, I don't need your charity, I don't need your, they would have had what I call is a conduit on the one side is plugged up. You can't accept because you're not open. to be able to accept. So we have to be open to accept. And then on the backside, pride gets us because, that's when we become a bucket. All we are is about gimme, gimme, gimme. My name is Jimmy. I'll take all you gimme. Like, you have those, I swear, like you have those people, especially at these conferences sometimes where it's like the only reason why they're there is to try to get something out of you. And it's like, that's fine. Like I'm totally willing to give to those people, but you kind of know in the back of your head, they're not going to go ever help anybody else with it. They're never going to, do anything for anybody. They're really in it just for themselves. And then the last thing really is laziness. God never, ever, ever blesses a lazy person. Never. So whether it's fear, whether it's pride or laziness, and to me, like, I don't really know. I've been really trying to think about this. Is there anything else that really stops people? And laziness goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, pleasure. Sometimes like that's all we want. Our body says like, I just want pleasure. My body says I want what I want. But at the end of the day, it's really about putting in taking that first step forward, and then just the daily discipline to be able to create momentum, and be able to create success in your life at the end of our life. What I want to hear is, well done, thou good and faithful servant.
Yep. Amen.
To me, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. People are like, what gets you out of bed? And like, that's what it is. Like, to me, I'd want to hear well done, thou good and faithful servant. I don't want to hear, thou lazy, slothful servant.
Yeah.
That would be pretty terrible.
Yeah, that would be awful
to hear that. Wow. Yeah. It's interesting. And I'll just kind of, I want to honor your time because we're getting close to that hour mark, but everything that you highlighted here. So the way we met you is Stu and I don't know if it's through a podcast through the exposure, Stu, or just kind of, we heard about you and then Stu had reached out and had some conversations, and we were looking at different ways to potentially really to better ourselves and to model our business, and how would we want to model it and who would we want to do. And I'll tell you, the money question and what your net worth is and what it is, like, I have no clue, don't care. It's never been something that we've ever considered. It was all about this stuff that you talked about, right? And it was Stu and I always talk about refining your why, and I think we have a pretty good why. But when we looked at ours, and then we're like, who do we want to be with and partner with, and the things they say and the things they do and the way they act and the way they conduct business and how do they honor God? And you were like, you popped out. And it was awesome because it's just all this stuff you highlight is all business. It's all very good business stuff. And anybody, there's nobody that would look into your business and the things you're doing and be like, oh yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. Very clearly, you know exactly what you're doing, but it's all the other stuff that really attracted Stu and I. So hopefully it's a bit of an encouragement, because we are just absolutely, we've been super excited about this podcast. We love what your business is about, the way you have a servant's heart, the way you serve God, and it's so evident. But it's not just serving God. It's not the Christian thing. It's of most importance to us, but it's you serve and love people, and it's obvious. And I think that is just such an amazing place to be. So I am absolutely encouraged just through this conversation. I think Stu's contribution to this whole thing is probably what we should aim more for, that kind of that level. But all joking aside, it's just been amazing to hear you highlight these things that are so important. Sorry, Stu, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I'm super bummed that the Good Success Mastermind group has gone away, because it was literally like on our list of to-do items. We're in a pretty expensive high-level mastermind right now, and we're kind of get through that and maybe look at some other opportunities. But I mean, I'll speak for David on this one. We are excited about future coaching with Tom Olson, and Israel, November 22. Hey, we're gonna we'll be retired by then, right, David?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We will be retired. Can I ask for one thing?
Yeah.
Can I ask for one thing? So I don't know exactly everybody who's listening to this. My understanding is it's Christian entrepreneurs, probably a lot of people that are in the military.
Yep.
And I have a cousin who's actually retiring right now. from the Pentagon. He runs the oil for the Air Force, pretty high level job there. And he's looking, I'm not like putting this out there because like, I think he's going to have a problem finding a job, but I just wanted to put this out there. Like it's something that we've been praying for him for. So, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Like if somebody needs somebody that, you know, that has, you know, Pentagon clearance and then also can, you know, understands what the military does when it comes to moving oil. He's the top of the top, you know, right now, probably in the world, I believe. I mean, that's pretty much how I understand it. But if somebody knows somebody who's looking to hire, I think he's in Virginia. So if anybody knows somebody that might make a good fit, or if nothing else, just as a prayer request for some of the guys that might resonate with.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you throwing that out there. I mean, it's a huge thing. Like, you know, doing 20 years of service in the military, a lot of people have a really hard time with that transition and struggle. And I mean, David and I are very nervous about it.
And honestly,
we feel like we have something lined up.
He didn't build things with real estate, you know, really either. I think he's got the whole, whatever, the pension, I think that's pretty set. But I don't want to give out too many details, but I mean, he's a really good guy, Christian guy.
Awesome.
Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, how do our listeners get in touch with you? How do they get some more goodness from you? You know, some good success.
Absolutely. So we do have the Good Success podcast. I already mentioned that at the beginning. So that's got about 250 episodes or something on it now. We also, if it's for real estate, me and Jared put on the Active Turnkey podcast as well, which Stu, I actually think you're on our list to get. Most of it's just been me and Jared. Like we're just trying to do, you know, as much of what we can, you know, put into the show ourselves. It's not really one of those shows where there's a lot of guests. It's really just a lot of really nitty gritty turnkey, you know, talk and rentals in general talk. So you can obviously find us there, any podcast platform and all that. If somebody would like to get in touch with me personally, I will give out my email. So it's Olson, TOLSON @goodsuccess.com. And if you're interested in business consulting or me speaking or anything like that, I've also written some books, The 30 Days to Good Success Journey, Investors versus Contractors, and Active Turnkey, the best way to buy rentals, which basically tells you how to use a turnkey provider to do the Burr method, basically, if you want to, if a lot of people are familiar with that. But so those are some other ways to get in touch with me. And then goodsuccess.com, if you are interested in, I mean, if you're interested in the consulting, you can go there as well. But if you're interested in the Israel trip, which I promise you it will sell out. I'm actually speaking at an event this week, and we already have 18 people that have already booked it. I've already given $500 to reserve their seat. But I have a feeling that 42 number is gonna hit pretty quickly. So, and I haven't even done a lot of marketing on it. So like, this is just really a lot of friends and family, a lot of people that I know have wanted to go. And honestly, like as a Christian entrepreneur, they call it the fifth gospel. And I didn't understand that until I went there and actually saw, wow, this is actually where Jesus walked. And then understanding the 6-day trip, you know, from different cities to the other city, you know, where Jesus went up to the gates of Hades, and it's actually a place called the gates of Hades. And he said, the gates of hell will not prevail against me. You know, seeing that, and then seeing, you know, where Dan is at, back where maybe David was when he wrote some of the Psalms, you know, understanding the culture a little bit. But, you know, it's really just, I cannot. And this isn't like for us to make money. Like we're not making any money on this trip. This is literally just like to be able to help people. Yeah. And there's actually a pastor who is one of the tour guides. It's actually Aaron's pastor is actually one of our tour guides. And so if anybody's interested in that, honestly, like to me, like I can't say enough about it. It's not even, I can't even do it justice. It's that good of a trip. So if you guys want more information, we did a whole webinar on that actual trip with Kurt Skelly, who's going to be one of our guides there on the trip. And it's about 45 minutes. If you guys want to watch that, you'll know and if that's on our website, you'll know exactly what that'll entail and what it all includes and all that. So, but I mean, those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook. Facebook's probably the main platform that I'm on. I'm on Instagram and all those places, but if you're trying to connect with me, Facebook's probably the better place to connect, or like I gave you my email.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
David's on Facebook a lot too. He loves Facebook.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Well, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook.
Yeah, I know we do too.
Especially lately.
Yeah. Man, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. I have like a page of notes here that I'm going to go like jot down like in a real notebook instead of a piece of paper. And
I love your guys' faith, family, and financial freedom. That's awesome. I'm not sure if that's your core values or if that's just something that you guys want to promote for this podcast.
Yeah.
I think, just as a really last, nugget, if you guys want something from me, I think core values are so important that you have to do them in your business. And if you don't know how to do them, like, I understand that. I did not know how to do them myself 10 years ago. I get it. That is part of what we do in this, this business consulting program, with the 2 days that I'll actually come out to somebody's office. But like, as much as they are important for your business, it's also even more important to do this with your own families and your own kids. And, for us, we did these with our kids, just like I recommend you do them with your people at your work and your employees. And so we came up with we call them our family rules. Our family rules are: number 1, be kind one to another. Number 2, tell the truth. Number 3, no lying. And then now it's, as they get older, we're saying it, tell the truth. Like you have to say the no's when they're younger, right? To kind of get to the positives. Yeah. And then the next one was no whining, which now is turning into be thankful, and what are you grateful for? And then the last one, which I'm so proud of, Edie, who was 6 at the time, now she's 13. She actually came up with this one. And I kind of feel like this is I hope this is a reflection of me and Becky, is give gifts. Like she literally came up with that. I think that should be one of our core values. And that kind of hits all of the same points that our business core values are of charity, stewardship, community, and growth. Like it really like hits the same points of, charity is the most important thing. Be kind is the most important thing. But if I can just give one last piece of advice for anybody, it would have core values in your business and make sure you live by them. And number 2, have those same kind of guiding principles, family rules, core values, whatever you want to call them in your family. That's really the legacy that you're going to leave. Like the legacy isn't really the money. The money is just money. Yeah. The legacy is, what did you install into somebody else's life that's going to live on beyond you?
Yeah, I love that.
Love it.
So good. It's on my list to do items with my family, with my wife, is sit down, create family core values.
And we do this every time we go on vacation. So every time we go on vacation, we're just building on those.
Yeah.
Why? Kids are excited to go to Disney World. Well, guess what? You're not going to Disney World, kids, until we've sat down for 5 minutes and 10 minutes. We've had a little meeting and we're going to kind of talk about these things. And as they get older, they're obviously, my 15-year-old, a little bit more interested now in like, how do I create a budget? They're a little bit more interested in how do I save? How do I invest? They become more interested because you've instilled these other things into them when they're younger. So it's never too early. Trust me. Like and honestly, if you say, well, my kids are already 13, 14, it's too late. Like get it started now.
That's awesome.
And we could probably start talking for another hour on this subject.
Yeah. Good.
We really could.
We're gonna have you come back. We're gonna have you come back, Tom.
I love it.
Well, Tom, this is awesome, man. Thank you. I'm fired up.
I really do appreciate other people that are really trying to help Christian entrepreneurs. And that's what I thought about when we started Good Success, was like, how do we help other Christian entrepreneurs have more so they can give more? Yeah. So I really do appreciate your guys' heart as well. And thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Well, you heard him. Go reach out to Tom. And we're going to look hard at doing this Israel trip. And lots more. Subscribe to this, share this, tell people about this podcast episode. This one's a good one to listen to, I promise you. Most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Make it a great day, friends. This was awesome. Thanks, Tom.
See you.
Have a good day.